Caleb Shepard hated my guts, yet after returning to the country, he was the one who came to me, seeking a truce. Aiden Sterling, let's start over. The little rascal put on a daily act, pretending to be obedient, pretending to be deeply in love. Until the earthquake, we were pinned beneath the same massive slab of concrete. He sneered, his voice cold. You really are stupid, Mr. Sterling. I tricked you out of everything you own, and you still want to save me. Blood pooled beneath me. So, I said, my voice hoarse, that's how much you hate me. The slab wouldn't budge. Of the two of us, only one could live. So when the rescuers came, I didn't cry for help. I only whispered to him, I'm sick. I was dying anyway. My life in exchange for yours. Then you won't be angry anymore, will you? When the earthquake hit, Caleb and I were on a business trip abroad. It was the middle of the night. Without warning, the hotel began to shake violently, and in an instant, it collapsed with a deafening roar. Amidst the nightmarish tremors and explosions, I remember Caleb grabbing my hand. Aiden Sterling. Wake up, Aiden Sterling. My consciousness broke the surface like it was shooting up from the deep sea. Before I could answer, a thick cloud of dust choked me, sending me into a coughing fit. So you're still alive, Caleb said suddenly in the darkness. His tone wasn't one of disappointment, but it was exceptionally cold. I was still reeling from the shock of the sudden disaster. Was it an earthquake? I asked, dazed. Yes, Caleb shouted help a few times, but not a single sound came back in response. We're going to die here, he said, his voice raw. No, we won't, I told him, trying to imitate the coaxing tone he used whenever he was trying to fool me. We're alive right now, which means there's hope. Pull yourself together. Someone will be here to rescue us soon. I then asked him, can you still move? Do you have any feeling in your arms and legs? The words came out too fast, and a sharp pain shot through my chest. My breathing grew heavy and raspy in the confined space, carrying the faint, metallic scent of blood. A broken rib must have punctured my lung. I slowed my breathing, swallowing a pained grunt. Through a crack in the rubble, I could see Caleb. We weren't far apart, pinned at opposite ends of the same prefabricated concrete slab. A sliver of moonlight shone through a hole in the ruins, illuminating the tiny mole on the bridge of his high nose. Caleb blinked. In a situation like this, he said with a cold laugh, I can't keep up the act anymore. Aiden Sterling, this is where it ends for us. It's over, but he hasn't gotten what he wanted yet. 6 months ago, Caleb had come back to the country to make peace with me. Aiden Sterling, let's start over. I knew why he was doing it, of course, to legally swindle me out of all my assets and shares. For revenge, I tucked the brain cancer diagnosis into my pocket and said to him, all right. The silly boy had no idea I was playing him too. Because all my assets were always meant to be his. I had thought this whole charade would last until the cancer killed me. By then, Caleb would have what he wanted, and I, before I died, would have a false, fleeting possession of him. We would each get what we desired. A perfect, mutually beneficial arrangement. But now, the earthquake had shattered everything. The sirens and screams sounded distant, unreal. It can't end, I muttered under my breath. It's not time yet. Caleb heard me, he frowned. What did you say? A sharp pain flared in my chest again, jolting me into a clearer state of mind. I played dumb. I don't know what you were just talking about. If you weren't an idiot, Mr. Sterling, you'd have realized by now that you've been had, Caleb said lightly. Do you need me to spell it out for you? He continued. The factory I brought you here to inspect. It's mine. All those previous collaborations were just a way to tie up your cash flow and bankrupt you. And that I owe you for the tens of millions of dollars you lent me. I deliberately wrote it up wrong. It has no legal standing. I closed my eyes. That's enough, I whispered. Caleb wouldn't stop. The only reason I got back together with you was to ruin you, to leave you with nothing. It wasn't because he paused, then finished. There was no other reason. I stared at his youthful eyebrows and lashes, now dusted with dirt. No other reason, I asked calmly, then deliberately teased him with a smile. You couldn't forget me for 6 years, could you? From love to hate. Looks like you really did love me once. Ha, Caleb scoffed. Aiden Sterling, you're being incredibly presumptuous. I came back for revenge, not to love you. Do you understand? My lips parted and closed without a sound. The pain in my head and chest merged into a single, overwhelming agony. I wanted to beg him to stop, or to just keep lying to me. Just lie to me a little longer. You'll be free soon enough. I managed a weak, bitter smile. I understand. After a few seconds of silence, I wiggled my trapped fingertips. You came all this way back to the country for revenge, I said, deceiving myself. It's just because you're angry I didn't love you enough back then, right? Otherwise, why would my hand still be wrapped in yours? Caleb's brow furrowed. He tried to yank his arm free, but before he could succeed, a chilling creak echoed from deep within the rubble. Love. He stopped moving, his voice turning to ice. Is that supposed to be something special? Aiden Sterling, you're so full of yourself. Your love isn't worth a damn. Your love isn't worth a damn. I had said those exact words to Caleb 6 years ago. My father had just passed away, and the Sterling kinsfolk were ganging up on me, trying to undermine my position in the group and force me to step down. After a few staged accidents involving both Caleb and me, I decided to send him abroad. Caleb, the Sterling family has raised you for 14 years. Our debt to you is paid, I'd told him. I'll give you one last sum of money. Go and don't come back. Caleb had come to live with us when he was 8 after his parents died. Though he was 6 years younger than me, he always protected me like a fearless wolf cub. The boy who had never been afraid of anyone stood before me, broken, his eyes bloodshot. I won't go, Aiden Sterling. I'd rather die with you. I slapped him across the face, my teeth clenched. What nonsense, can't you stop being so childish? What good would you be if you stayed? Caleb stood his ground, his neck rigid. A thin line of blood trickled from the corner of his tightly pressed lips. I'm 22. I can do anything for you. He lowered his head, his voice dropping to a near beg. Aiden Sterling, don't send me away. Do you have money? I balled my fists, forcing myself to look him in the eye. Can you help me land a major project? Help me secure my footing in the group. Caleb froze, as if nailed to the spot. The sorrow in his eyes instantly hardened into cold, dark resentment. I can't do that right now. So you're dumping me to arrange a marriage with the Gordon heiress? Yes, I said, each word deliberate. Caleb, just go. Your love to me isn't worth a damn. Caleb did leave, but 6 years later he came back. He had survived and thrived, but he was no longer that proud, untamable boy who would only swallow his pride for me. I had broken his heart. He had been forced to mature, becoming ruthless, cold, and unfeeling. And he had a good memory. He could throw my words from 6 years ago right back at me, verbatim. My love isn't worthless now, I retorted, a teasing note in my voice. As long as we don't end things, I'll transfer all my company shares to you for free. How about that? But Caleb was furious. You think I care about that? Aiden Sterling, I'm not like you. You're just a money grubber. I came back to make you see that you were wrong. Someone like you doesn't deserve to be loved. It's not about the money. I started to argue. A low rumble suddenly echoed from deep underground. The world began to shake again. It's an aftershock, Caleb yelled, shutting his eyes. I clenched my jaw, enduring the excruciating pain of my organs being crushed over and over. After 10 or so seconds, the shaking subsided. Why is it wet here? Caleb's hand, still holding mine, twitched. He frowned. Aiden Sterling, are you bleeding? For the aftershock had widened the gap in the rubble above Caleb's head, and a large patch of moonlight fell on his face, outlining his sharp features in silver. I watched him quietly for a few seconds before curving my eyes into a smile. Are you worried about me? Caleb looked over, his eyes filled with malicious glee. He smirked. Of course. After all, I haven't quite managed to trick you into poverty and have you begging for mercy on your knees. It would be a real buzzkill if you died now, wouldn't it? So, Caleb really doesn't love me anymore. For a moment, I suddenly felt no pain. A large part of my body went hollow, as if a cold wind was blowing through it. I shivered slightly, thinking numbly, maybe it's for the best. If he doesn't love me, at least he won't be sad. And if he's angry, seeing the contents of my will should be enough to calm him down. It's probably a broken water pipe, I said, my voice hoarse. I just can't feel my lower body. It doesn't hurt much anymore. I don't care if you're in pain or not. Caleb cut me off coldly. Aiden Sterling, did you ever care how much pain I was in 6 years ago? I did. I cared so much that I remember the look in your eyes, your expression, the tremble in your voice every single day. I suppressed the ache in my chest. I'm sorry, I said thickly. Don't be, Caleb replied crisply, his tone flippant. Besides, I've caused you plenty of pain since I came back, haven't I, Mr. Sterling, the way you endure it in bed. It's quite satisfying to watch. My breath caught. My heart felt like it had missed a step. I was suddenly swamped with shame, but I still asked, were you doing it on purpose, demanding so much so relentlessly? Deliberately hurting me. Yes, Caleb answered, his voice laced with cold hatred. Every time I kissed you, what I really wanted to do was sink my teeth into your neck. Ah, so that's why. No wonder he was always accidentally biting my lip until it bled. I laughed at myself, my mind quickly drifting back to my first kiss with Caleb. It was December in Port Sterling, and snow was falling at night. I had ended my trip early and come home to find someone in my room. I walked in silently, without turning on the light. In the dimness, Caleb was standing by the desk near the window, stealing a half-smoked cigar of mine. The little rascal never smoked. His hand trembled as he lit it. The flame illuminated half his face, proud, yet so vulnerable. Suddenly, he whipped his head around and saw me, and immediately broke into a violent coughing fit. I calmly walked over and plucked the cigar from his hand. Silly boy, you have to inhale. As the ember glowed and faded, I leaned in and pressed my lips to his, breathing the gray smoke into his lungs like a tide. Caleb's whole body was shaking. I laughed at him again. You don't know how to smoke and you don't know how to kiss either. Harder, he whispered, but the silly boy was still so careful. He rested his forehead against mine, his voice a low rasp. I couldn't bear to, he said. Aiden Sterling, I'm afraid if I breathe too hard, you'll just fly away. Then he held me tight. I'll never be held like that again. Clack, a few small rocks suddenly fell from the rubble above. I snapped out of my memories. Someone's here, Caleb shouted. We're going to be saved. 5 Caleb started shouting, help, over and over. Footsteps grew closer. My heart began to pound uncontrollably. A few seconds later, a terrified face appeared in the gap above Caleb. It was a local woman. She was crying, shouting something in a language I didn't understand, and then she moved on. The ruins fell silent again. She must be looking for her family, I said, hiding my disappointment, trying to sound casual. The rescue team must be nearby. They'll be here soon. I asked again, do you have feeling in your arms and legs? Can you move? Does it hurt anywhere? Caleb was quiet for a moment. He moved his body with all his might. Only one side is pinned, he said in a low voice. I can barely move the other. Then use your free hand and feel around. See if there's anything useful. The rubble above us was precarious, constantly making small, shifting sounds. I had thought rescue would come quickly, but the situation seemed far more dire than we'd imagined. We had to find a way to get help fast. Caleb fumbled around for a while. There's a phone, he said suddenly. He carefully dug the phone out from the debris. It still works, he shouted. But after dialing a few numbers, he added, no signal, I can't make a call. It's okay, I said, forcing myself to sound cheerful. See if you can turn on the flashlight. I can, good. Now point the flashlight out through the gap and wave it in a steady rhythm. As I watched him do as I said, my mind drifted to the Caleb of long ago. I wanted, just like back then, to tell him, my little Cal is such a good boy. My little Cal is such a good boy. Years and years ago, I used to pat his head and praise him just like that. I was probably the only person in the world who would ever describe Caleb as good. When Caleb grew up, he was nearly 6'3", with broad shoulders and long legs. He rarely smiled. A cold glance from him was like being stared down by a hawk or a wolf. But I thought Caleb was different with me. He would wait for me to get home every night before he'd eat. He'd meticulously pick out the onions, ginger, and garlic I disliked from my food. I'd laugh. My little Cal is such a good boy. Caleb would look away, his face impassive. I was just bored. When I had to go out for business dinners, he'd sit in the living room with a bowl of hangover soup, waiting for me late into the night. Me, my little Cal is such a good boy. Caleb, I just couldn't sleep. Once, as I was leaving, I casually mentioned, I haven't had that bakery's soy milk bread in a while. He ran all the way across town to buy it for me, waited for me to come home, then handed it over as if it were an afterthought. Bought it on the way. I'd reach up and ruffle his hair, teasing him again. My little Cal is such a good boy. I'd see the tips of his ears turn bright red, and feeling mischievous, I'd chase him around, repeating it over and over. My little Cal is such a good boy. My little Cal is such a good boy. 6 years ago, when he turned his back on me and left for a foreign country alone, I said it in my heart. But from that moment on, I was never happy again. The blood loss was making me tired and cold. What about this time? I thought sluggishly. This time it's me who's leaving. Then it hit me again. Caleb didn't love me anymore. When someone you don't love leaves, it surely doesn't hurt as much as it did for me 6 years ago. So I smiled. My little Cal, I whispered like I was talking in my sleep, will be happy from now on. Caleb seemed to snap out of his own memories. He abruptly stopped waving the light. As if stung, he turned his head and said coldly, don't call me that. It makes me sick. Cut the parent act. If I make it out of here alive, I'll become the largest shareholder in Sterling Group. Let's see you try to be a hypocrite in front of me then, a hypocrite, so that's what he thinks of me. I should have been sad, but I no longer had the strength to be. The pain was gradually dulling. I think I really was about to die. Suddenly, a rustling sound approached quickly. The rubble trembled slightly. Then someone lifted a slab of stone from above Caleb's head. Hello, a voice said. We're the rescue team. Don't be afraid, we'll get you out soon. 6. Just as I was about to speak, I heard one of the rescuers say in Dutch, the precast slab on this man is too large. We can't get heavy machinery in here right now. We'll have to use a hydraulic jack to pry up his side. Let's hope there's no one pinned on the other end, or we'll have an impossible choice. Or what? I thought, my mind hazy. Or the person on the other side is already dead. Is that it? Slowly, very gently, I looked at Caleb. He didn't understand Dutch, so he was calmly answering the rescuer's questions in English, his replies concise. I watched him without blinking, listening to his deep, slightly hoarse voice. Suddenly, I remembered the car crash from 6 years ago. It was snowing in Port Sterling that day. After a board meeting, I was driving Caleb home from university as usual. Halfway there, I noticed the truck in front of me seemed to be deliberately boxing me in. Every time I tried to change lanes and speed up, it would cut me off. The truck had no license plate, its windows were tinted, and its bed was loaded with dozens of steel rebars. "Brother, pull over," Caleb said suddenly from the passenger seat. I had sensed something was wrong too. But in the next second, a Jeep sped up from behind and slammed into us. With a deafening crash, our car rear-ended the truck. The rebar in the truck bed shot through the windshield, aimed straight for my eyes. In that split second, I slammed on the brakes with all my might and wrenched the steering wheel. Almost simultaneously, Caleb threw himself over me, shielding me with his body. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Caleb's blood. A piece of rebar had grazed his neck and embedded itself in the driver's seat. The gash was nearly 4 inches long, the flesh peeled back. Blood instantly stained half his collar. I stared blankly for a few seconds, then exploded. "Caleb, are you fucking crazy or just stupid? Did you just lunge over here to get yourself killed?" Caleb let me curse him out without a word, just staring at me, his gaze intense. He stared at the hospital while they stitched him up. He stared on the way home. I woke up startled in the middle of the night to find him standing by my bed like a ghost, still staring. I couldn't take it anymore. "What is wrong with you?" I yelled. "Go back to your room and sleep like a stubborn mule." Caleb didn't move. Defeated, I shifted over in the bed. "If you're not going to leave, then get in." Just as I was about to fall asleep, I felt him holding me tightly. In a hazy daze, I heard Caleb's choked, plaintive voice. "Aiden Sterling, if you dare to die, I'll haunt you for eternity." My consciousness drifted in and out. I heard Caleb's voice again. "Wake up, Aiden Sterling. Please wait. There's another person trapped with me." Aiden Sterling, Aiden Sterling. I kept my eyes closed. I could sense a flickering light in front of me. The rescue team was using a flashlight to assess my position. When they saw I didn't open my eyes or react, Caleb let out a cold snort. "Why the sudden act, Mr. Sterling? Done playing the saint and now you're pretending to be unconscious. You can't be stupid enough to think that'll make them rescue you first, can you?" "I'm not, and I have no intention of leaving first." The light disappeared. The rescuers were busy clearing the debris from the opening, no longer paying attention to me. I slowly opened my eyes and looked at Caleb's face. In a tiny voice, so quiet only he could hear, I said, "At least. You loved me then, right, when you protected me in the crash?" Caleb froze for a few seconds. His tone was cold. "The Sterling family raised me for 14 years. I was just repaying a debt. Love you." He stared at me, his voice a taunt, each word sharp and deliberate. "Never." 7. I think I smiled. Or maybe I didn't. I see. I said to myself, "That's good." My body was completely cold now and the pain had faded. The rescue team had almost cleared all the debris from above Caleb. My time was running out. One last look. Just one. "Caleb," I mouthed his name silently. But as if he'd heard me, he looked up and met my eyes. Slowly, with just my breath, I told him, "Thank you. If it wasn't love, then I should be even more grateful. Thank you for waiting for me to come home every night. Thank you for knowing all my likes and dislikes by heart. Thank you for caring about every word I said. Thank you for throwing yourself in front of me during the crash, without a thought for your own life. Thank you for being obedient and going abroad, allowing me to deal with those old guys without any reservations. Thank you for coming back to me 6 years later. When I was dying and in so much pain, you gave me a long, beautiful dream. You made me believe that my life had no regrets." Under Caleb's gaze, I slowly closed my eyes again. 2 rescuers carefully lowered themselves through the opening and came to Caleb's side. "Sir, please hang in there," one of them said. "We need to use a hydraulic tool to lift the slab off you. The release of pressure may cause severe pain, so please don't." "What did you say?" Caleb's voice was sharp. "If you do that, the pressure on the other end of the slab will multiply. Didn't you see there's someone else under there?" The rescuer was silent for a few seconds. "I'm very sorry, sir," he said regretfully. "With the frequent aftershocks and a nearby gas leak from a ruptured pipe, we can't use heavy machinery. Rescue is limited to manual digging." And another rescuer added, "That gentleman seems to be in much worse condition than you. He's lost a lot of blood and is already unconscious." "Nonsense," Caleb suddenly shouted. "He was perfectly conscious. He was just talking to me. Where's the blood? And even if there is, it's someone else's." "Please calm down, sir," the rescuer soothed. "Emotional distress could endanger your life." "Aiden Sterling," Caleb yelled, as if he couldn't hear anyone else. He commanded, "Open your eyes now." I held my breath. A stinging ache surged from my eyes to my heart. But something hot spilled from the corners of my eyes, trickling down my temples. "Caleb, say my name again. Say it a few more times. But could you not sound so angry?" Caleb's furious shout stopped abruptly as he broke into a violent coughing fit. The rescuers worked faster, operating the hydraulic jack to lift the slab off Caleb. The machine began a low, humming drone. Soon, I heard the sound of my own bones breaking. The air was being squeezed from my lungs, inch by inch. I clenched my fists, not making a sound. Caleb was still staring at me, his eyes locked on mine. He suppressed his coughs, yelling at the rescuers to stop. "Aiden Sterling, why are you pretending to be asleep?" he choked out. "What trick are you playing now? Don't think. This will make me go soft on you." "I don't believe you." The hydraulic jack reached its maximum height. My body gave a violent jolt. A gush of blood poured from my lips. I opened my eyes and saw the look on Caleb's face freeze in time. Caleb just stared at me. His eyes, as if scalded by the sight of my blood, turned a startling crimson. The rescuers quickly bandaged him up and began to move him out. Suddenly, I felt a tug on my fingers. It was Caleb. He was still holding my hand tightly. He must have been pinned for too long, I thought. His hand is probably cramped. I wiggled my fingers, trying to use my last ounce of strength to pull my hand away. But the next second, Caleb's grip tightened. His expression was blank, stiff. His lips parted and closed, and he gave a slight, trembling shake of his head. I had seen that subconscious, rejecting motion before. Right after we had gotten back together, Caleb had taken out his frustrations on my body, leaving marks all over me. At the office, my close friend and VP, Warren, happened to see a bruise on my neck. "That kid Caleb plays rough, huh?" he'd teased. I adjusted my collar, smiling faintly. "The kid's got some anger to work out. It'll pass." "You spoiled him when he was a kid, and you're still spoiling him now?" Warren had asked. "How long are you going to coddle him like this?" What had I answered then? I think it was, "Until one of us leaves." When I got home that day, Caleb had pressed against me again, calling me brother. I had no fight left in me. I smiled and stroked the back of his neck. "Don't call me brother anymore. I can't take much more of this." "How about I call you brother from now on, okay?" Caleb's body had stiffened. His head, buried in my chest, shook slightly. It was a little hurt, a little stubborn. "No," he'd said. Now, looking into Caleb's crimson eyes, I thought numbly, "This time I'm really leaving." The rescuers kept trying to get Caleb to relax, but he stubbornly held onto my hand. In a daze, the man before me seemed to transform back into the boy who had held me so tightly in his sleep after the car crash. I don't think I comforted him back then. I'll do it now. For the last time, I managed a difficult smile, trying to tell him it was okay. It's all right, I was sick. I was going to die anyway, but I couldn't make a sound. I could only form the words with my lips. The next second, my hand finally slipped from Caleb's grasp. He was moved away by the combined effort of the rescue team. My palm was empty. My hand fell onto the blood-soaked rubble with a barely audible sound. But Caleb flinched as if he'd been struck. A hoarse, broken sound tore from his throat. My remaining consciousness was rapidly dissolving. I couldn't hear what he was saying anymore. He was getting farther and farther away, being taken to a safe, bright place. That's good. Before I fell into darkness, that was my last peaceful thought. From now on, Caleb won't be angry with me anymore, will he? He'll recover quickly. He'll get everything he ever wanted. He'll live a peaceful, happy life. Everything that happened today. He'll eventually forget it all, including me. My soul drifted through layers of mist, as if pulled by an invisible thread, eventually finding its way back to Caleb's side. He had just woken up from a brief spell of unconsciousness, his eyes opening in confusion. Suddenly, he leaped from the stretcher and ran out of the tent, but his legs were severely injured. He didn't get more than a few steps before he collapsed. A white volunteer with a Red Cross armband ran over and helped him up, trying to lead him back. "The doctor said you can't move your legs, or you'll be crippled," she said sternly. Caleb seemed not to hear her. He grabbed her sleeve. "Where's Aiden Sterling? Did he just dump me here and run off?" "I don't know," the volunteer said, shaking her head with a frown. "But after the rescue team brought you here, they went back to that site to keep digging. You can wait." Maybe Caleb, with a strength that came from nowhere, shoved the volunteer away and staggered back toward the ruins. After a few steps, large patches of blood seeped through the white bandages on his legs. The new sun rose, illuminating the vast landscape of rubble and debris. Halfway there, Caleb fell again. He struggled back to his feet, muttering through gritted teeth, "Aiden Sterling, you won't get away with leaving me behind, you won't." The morning light cast a long shadow behind him as he stumbled forward. I followed him, hidden in his shadow. He couldn't find me. In the end, he was practically crawling. Caleb finally reached the ruins of the hotel where we'd been buried. A rescuer stopped him. "Sir, it's dangerous here. Please don't come any closer." Caleb struggled to his feet and grabbed the man's collar. "Did Aiden Sterling pay you? Did he have you get me out first so he could get rid of me? Is that it?" The rescuer recognized him. "Are you two friends?" he asked, looking troubled. "I'm very sorry for what happened." The Dutch-speaking volunteer came over and said a few words to the man Caleb was holding. The rescuer nodded and translated for Caleb. "Excuse me, does your friend understand Dutch?" Caleb nodded blankly, then asked resentfully, "He fled to the Netherlands, didn't he?" The rescuer said, "I'm very sorry. Our volunteer says your friend must have overheard what he said at the opening of the cavern. He knew that only one of you could survive, so he must have given up his chance to live on purpose, so we could get you out as quickly as possible." Caleb stared, stunned, as if he couldn't comprehend the words. Then he suddenly laughed. How is that possible?" He shook his head, staggering back a few steps. Ha, as if he'd just heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. Caleb laughed. "Impossible, no way. Why would Aiden Sterling die for me? I'm the last person he'd ever care about. He must have told you to say that. He's not even in the rubble anymore." With that, Caleb charged straight into the ruins. When the Dutch volunteer blocked his path, he roared viciously, "What did you say? What did you say back then?" Another rescuer pulled him away and translated the words I had heard. Suddenly, a voice called out from within the rubble. "Captain, we've got the other victim out, 10 from a distance. I saw my own body being carried out of the hole by several rescuers. I lay quietly on the stretcher, like a blood-stained, dirty fallen leaf." Caleb's eyes were wide, unblinking. Then he suddenly pushed aside the people holding him back and stumbled towards me. He could barely walk, falling every few steps. By the time he reached my side, he was covered in dust and small cuts. He looked down at me, at my pale, sleeping face. Then he saw my mangled, caved-in chest and abdomen. "We're so sorry," a rescuer said regretfully. "He's already passed away." "Aiden Sterling?" Caleb seemed not to hear him. He just tilted his head, looking at me with a bewildered expression. "What are you doing here?" he asked very softly. He reached out a hand to touch me, but it stopped, trembling in mid-air. "Does it hurt?" he whispered, his voice raw. A rescuer draped a white sheet over my body. Caleb ripped it off. "What are you doing? He's still alive," he roared at the man. Then Caleb bent down to hug me. He couldn't support the weight. He quickly tumbled to the ground, taking me with him. My hand knocked against his body, and something fell out from my palm. It was a small, white Bluetooth earbud. It had been so well protected in my hand that it didn't have a single drop of blood on it. "Mine," Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. "How did you have this?" I stood behind him, answering silently, because I never stopped caring about you. 6 years ago, Caleb hadn't taken the money I'd left for him. He went abroad alone, working and studying part-time, washing dishes, washing cars, working night shifts as a cashier. The money he earned was barely enough to cover tuition and basic necessities, so he could only afford to rent a place in a very rough neighborhood. I bought an apartment near his university. It took a chain of intermediaries, but I finally managed to trick him into renting it for a low price. I was too worried. The day he moved in, I flew to his city. It was snowing heavily. I hid behind the trunk of a large sycamore tree and watched him get out of the taxi with his luggage and walk into the apartment building. Only after the taxi drove away and the light on the second floor turned on did I walk over and pick up the single earbud he had accidentally dropped. The boy had been so resolute back then. He took nothing with him when he left, but he left nothing behind either. Anything he couldn't take was either donated or thrown away, as if he wanted to erase every trace of himself from my life. So I took that earbud back with me. I kept it under my pillow. It became a habit, and I even took it with me on business trips. The night of the earthquake, Caleb had been so rough that we had ended up sleeping on the wrong pillows. I waited until he was asleep, then secretly retrieved it from under his pillow and clutched it in my hand. It was so close to being discovered. If Caleb found out that I still loved him, he would be sad when I died, wouldn't he? I was afraid he'd be sad, and I was afraid he wouldn't be, so it was better that he didn't know. Once he got what he wanted, maybe he would do to me what I had done to him and send me packing abroad. By then, I could die without any lingering attachments. That would have been the perfect ending. Not this brutal death forcing Caleb to discover the truth. But it's okay, because Caleb said he never loved me, so I don't think he'll be sad. 11. Caleb knelt by my body, refusing to leave. He clutched the white earbud, muttering to himself over and over, "You came to find me, didn't you? Why didn't you tell me? You already sent me away, so why did you come looking for me? Aiden Sterling, get up and explain yourself." Day turned to night. More bodies were laid out next to mine. Volunteers repeatedly tried to persuade Caleb to leave, but it was no use. He stubbornly kept vigil by my side. His tone shifted from demanding to pleading. "Aiden Sterling, I don't want anything anymore. The money, the shares, you can have it all back. The company I started abroad, my properties, everything I have is yours, just get up." He couldn't sit still any longer. He collapsed beside me, like a small child begging for forgiveness. "Aiden Sterling, get up," he sobbed. "I won't do it again. Please just get up, okay? I'll listen to you from now on. I won't lie to you anymore. I'll go wherever you want me to go. Please, Aiden Sterling, just get up." The summer heat was intense. The bodies could not be left out any longer. 2 workers in white hazmat suits approached Caleb, Sir, please accept our condolences, one said. To prevent a post-disaster epidemic, we must cremate the remains on site. Please leave immediately. Caleb slowly looked up, his reaction sluggish. No, he's not dead yet. Don't touch him. I'm taking him home. As he spoke, Caleb bent down to pick me up, but the infected wound on his leg made it impossible for him to stand. A worker helped him up and immediately felt something was wrong. Sir, you have a high fever, he called over 2 medics. Quick, take him to the isolation tent for treatment. The medics tried to pry Caleb's hands off my body. Don't touch him, get away, all of you, get away from him, Caleb roared, his voice raw. He threw himself on the ground, shielding my body, and no one could pull him off. The commotion drew the attention of the passing crowd. Caleb, a familiar voice, suddenly cut through the noise. It was my company's VP, Warren Shaw. He jumped down from a truck that had screeched to a halt and walked over to my body. Caleb, you animal, Warren suddenly swung his fist, landing a hard punch on Caleb's face. His eyes were red as he glared at Caleb. If you have an ounce of humanity left, give Aiden Sterling some dignity, he gritted out. Caleb didn't fight back, simply taking Warren's blows and curses. He glanced at Warren, then watched numbly as the workers carried my body away. Warren grabbed him by the collar and hauled him up. What's with the lovesick act now? He spat. If you hadn't tricked him into coming here, would he be dead? He gave you his fortune, his shares. Wasn't that enough? Why did you have to take his life? Too, Caleb looked as if the words had knocked the wind out of him, as if his very bones had been pulled out. He was like a puppet, letting Warren toss him onto a stretcher to be taken away by the doctors. Caleb couldn't close his eyes. He felt no pain, not until Warren walked over to him holding an urn. Caleb's bloodshot eyes twitched. He shakily raised a hand, wanting to hold my ashes. But Warren took a small step back, leaving Caleb's hand frozen in midair. Caleb, he said, his voice frigid, you don't deserve to touch him. If your life wasn't the one Aiden traded his for, I would have left you here to rot. Warren looked down at Caleb. But dying would be too easy for you, he continued. Besides, there's still a lot you don't know. 12 what? Truth? Caleb's voice was rough and hoarse. His dull eyes trembled. He tried to push himself up to grab onto Warren. Warren flicked his hand away, and Caleb tumbled off the cot. The wound on his leg started bleeding again. The IV needle in his arm came out, leaving a long, bloody scratch. Warren watched coldly. I really don't understand why Aiden loved you for so many years, he said, looking down. 6 years ago, he was so afraid the Sterling kinsfolk would hurt you, so afraid he'd drag you down with him, that he forced himself to send you abroad. He ignored Caleb's shocked expression and went on. 6 years later, the moment he gets sick, you come running back. Terminal brain cancer. Caleb, he let you bully him, let you torture him, all while dragging that body around, and he had to pretend he didn't know you were deliberately deceiving him. Do you have any idea what he was thinking? Do you have any idea how much pain he was in? Caleb lay on the floor, his body racked with uncontrollable tremors. He looked up, muttering, he came to see me, didn't he? See you. That's not the half of it, Warren said coldly. In those 6 years, he flew back and forth at least 20 times. When you couldn't afford rent, he bought an apartment and had an agent rent it to you for cheap. When you couldn't find funding for your startup, he had a partner anonymously invest $50 million in you. You thought Aiden Sterling was heartless, that he only cared about money. You're wrong. He only cared about you. The heartless one is you, Caleb. Only you. Caleb looked as if he'd been bludgeoned. He was completely stunned. After a long moment, he lowered his head. So, he whispered weakly, he found my earbud. He was bleeding the whole time. I didn't know anything, and I called him stupid, worthless. I even said, I never loved him, that I didn't believe him. I'm such an idiot, such an idiot. Caleb's expression was blank, as if he were meticulously replaying every single word we'd said while we were trapped. Don't think about it, I wanted to tell him. Stop thinking about it. It's pointless. It's over. But Caleb kept thinking, muttering to himself, until he suddenly coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood. Warren rushed over and hauled him back onto the bed. You don't get to die, Caleb, he snarled. Dying would be letting you off too easy. He stared into Caleb's half-closed, vacant eyes. You probably don't know this either, but Aiden's will was drawn up a long time ago. You brat, are his sole heir. You're not just you anymore. You're part of Aiden's legacy. If you fail to honor his last wishes, he will never forgive you. As the words fell, Caleb's body suddenly went into a violent convulsion. Doctors rushed in to save him, but Caleb's gaze never left the urn in Warren's arms. My urn. 13 on the charter flight back home with Warren. Caleb's legs still couldn't support him. On the plane, Caleb's face was ashen. He asked Warren in a raw voice, when can you give him to me? Warren glanced down at the urn in his arms. Caleb, he said mockingly, do you think you deserve it? You didn't cherish him when he was alive. What's the point of this lovesick act now? Seeing the color drain from Caleb's face and his shoulders slump in defeat, Warren said coldly, fine, you can have him, but only after you've taken over the company and ensured it's running smoothly. After a moment of silence, Caleb said, "Okay." As soon as the plane landed, Caleb insisted on going to the office. Warren shoved him into a car. "You'd better start taking care of yourself. If you dare work yourself to death, I swear I'll scatter Aiden's ashes to the wind." He enjoyed the sight of Caleb's face turning red with rage for a few seconds before telling the driver. To the hospital. During his hospital stay, Caleb begged Warren to bring him company documents. By the time he was discharged, his legs were still useless, but he had a complete grasp of the company's situation. He learned everything about what happened 6 years ago. He got my medical records. He even found the contracts for the apartment I bought for him and the records of the anonymous investment. He moved into my room, slept in my bed. He wore my clothes to sleep every night. He covered the mole on his nose with makeup. He canceled his own phone number and started using mine. He studied my past, mimicking all my habits. It was as if Caleb was trying to forge a new me, or perhaps trying to live for me. After some time, word spread through the company and the industry. Sterling's new chairman may be a cripple, but he was not to be underestimated. He was decisive and ruthless. In just 3 years, he took the Sterling Group public, nearly monopolizing the domestic manufacturing sector. But even on the day they rang the opening bell, no one ever saw him smile. Only in rare, unguarded moments could you glimpse the deep loneliness and pain in his eyes. Caleb's insomnia grew worse. For 3 years, the dosage of his sedatives steadily increased. He was like a bowstring pulled taut, nearing its breaking point. I watched him in silence, sometimes even starting to wonder if I shouldn't have died for him, because I could feel it. Caleb was in too much pain. Every breath he took was like death by 1,000 cuts. "Aiden Sterling, wait for me." He would say this late at night. Not long after, Caleb fell ill. Warren came to see him, bringing my urn. "You can have him now," he said. "The company is doing well. I'm leaving it all to you." "I have to go now too." Caleb, lying in his hospital bed, grabbed Warren's arm. "No," he said weakly. "I only want him. The company is yours. I'm dying." Caleb's lips curved into a slight smile, but tears streamed down his face. "It hurts so much to be alive. Every day I can feel the weight of that slab crushing him. I can feel the weight that was on me, all of it, crashing down on him." Caleb turned on his side, curling his back and clutching the urn to his chest. It was the same way he had shielded me in the car crash all those years ago. He closed his eyes. His body, which had been spasming in pain, gradually grew still. With his last breath, he said, "Aiden Sterling, wait for me." 14, I don't know how much time passed. Maybe a few seconds, maybe many years. When I opened my eyes again, I found I was a little boy. Everything around me was both familiar and strange. I was walking down a crowded street with no idea where I was going. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out from behind me, "Aiden Sterling." I turned around and saw a tall, older boy running towards me. He looked like he had been searching for a very long time. His brow was furrowed, and his forehead was beaded with sweat. I immediately froze, watching him with wide eyes, afraid I was in trouble, but he wasn't angry at all. He just knelt down and gently hugged me. "Don't be afraid," he said, his voice trembling. "It's me, your brother. I found you." I didn't think I remembered having a brother, but at the same time, it felt like I had known him for a very, very long time. I looked at his face and saw a tiny mole on the bridge of his nose. I reached out my finger and gently touched it. "Brother?" I asked. He froze, his eyes suddenly turned very red. "Yes, it's me, your brother," he choked out. "I've found you. I'll protect you from now on. I'll protect you, always."